On the edge of the city stood an old museum, known by the locals as the Silent Hall. No one dared to step inside at night, but Ethan, a young writer who was obsessed with mysteries, always sought truths hidden in the dark. One evening, he entered the museum. The air was heavy with silence and the smell of dust. Paintings of forgotten faces lined the walls, their eyes seeming to follow him as he walked. Suddenly, one portrait caught his eyes. It was a girl with hauntingly beautiful features. Her eyes were so alive that it felt like she was watching him. "She's so beautiful," Ethan whispered. "It feels like she could speak." And then a soft voice behind him answered, "Maybe she can." Startled, Ethan turned around. Standing there was a girl. Her name was Isabella. She was dressed in black. Her skin was as pale as moonlight, and her eyes held a deep sadness. "Who are you?" Ethan asked, his voice trembling. "Someone who can help you," Isabella replied, her voice like the rustling of dry leaves. "But what are you doing here? How did you get in? This place is closed." "There are some places," Isabella said, "that never truly shut their doors for anyone who seeks them in the quiet hours. They open just a crack, just enough to let the curious in, but also to hide their secrets well." Ethan, intrigued and a little suspicious, asked, "Do you know me?" "I know those who seek the truth," Isabella said, her eyes gleaming in the darkness. "And you seek the truth, don't you?" Before Ethan could respond, Isabella turned and walked away, her black dress swirling around her like a shadow. She moved like a whisper through the silent hall, her footsteps barely making a sound on the creaking floorboards. As she walked, she spoke. "This place holds many stories, many secrets buried in its walls. It feeds on the curiosity of men like you, those who come seeking answers in the dead of night." "Why?" Ethan whispered, his voice echoing in the vast emptiness. "Why does it do this?" Isabella stopped and turned to face him. Her eyes, pools of sorrow, seemed to hold the pain of ages. "Because," she said softly, "it can. Because it craves the touch of human emotion, the warmth of living souls. It feeds on our hopes and fears, our dreams and regrets. This place, this silent hall, is a devourer of hearts." Ethan, his heart pounding in his chest, found himself drawn to her. There was a strength in her sadness, a resilience that both frightened and fascinated him. "Can you help me?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "Help you?" Isabella echoed, her gaze boring into his. "What do you want from this place, young seeker? What truth do you crave?" Ethan hesitated. He had come seeking knowledge, understanding, but he wasn't sure if he was ready for what he might find. He began, his voice barely audible. "I want to understand. I want to know." Isabella stared at him for a long moment, her face unreadable in the gloom. Then, as if making a decision, she nodded slowly. "Very well," she said, her voice a mere whisper. "I will show you, but be warned, some truths are best left buried." With that, she turned and walked away, beckoning for him to follow. As Ethan followed Isabella deeper into the museum's shadowy halls, he couldn't shake off the feeling that he was not just uncovering the secrets of the silent hall, but also the secrets of his own soul. The museum, he realized, was a mirror, reflecting not just its own darkness, but his own as well. The night was young, and the secrets were waiting to be unraveled. Would Ethan be able to handle the truth when it was laid bare before him? Or would the silent hall, with its whispering walls and haunting portraits, break him like it had so many before him? Only time would tell. The old abandoned museum was filled with dusty relics of a forgotten age. Among them was a life-sized portrait of a beautiful girl with flowing red hair. It was the only piece in the collection that gave off an eerie feeling. Visitors claimed that it moved, but when they turned back, the girl was always still. Ethan, a young adventurer, heard about this strange painting and came to see it for himself. He wasn't scared, though. In fact, he felt drawn to the painting and spent hours in front of it. Over the next few nights, Ethan and Isabella met again and again. She showed him hidden corners of the museum, told him stories of the statues and the paintings. To Ethan, she wasn't just a girl. She was the secret he had been searching for. One moonlit night, Ethan asked, "Isabella, why do you always look so sorrowful?" Her eyes glistened with tears. "Because, Ethan, I am not real." Ethan laughed nervously. "What do you mean?" I can touch you, hear you. Of course you're real." Isabella's tears rolled down. She lifted her wrist. A faint glowing mark shone there, the same mark he had seen in the painting. "No," Ethan whispered in horror. Isabella's voice trembled. "I am that girl, the one from the portrait. Centuries ago, a painter trapped me inside his canvas. He cursed me to remain there forever, unless someone with a true heart looked upon me. You freed me, Ethan, but only for a little while." Ethan was deeply moved by her story. He had never felt such a strong connection with anyone before. But now the thought that Isabella would fade away from him again filled him with despair. They embraced, and he promised to find a way to break the curse. As dawn approached, Isabella started to vanish, becoming one with the painting once more. The colors swirled around her, trapping her like honey. With a final smile at Ethan, she disappeared completely. Left alone in the empty museum, Ethan vowed to keep his promise. He researched everything he could about the curse and the painter, hoping to find a clue. His search led him to an old book about the history of art. Inside, he found a faded entry describing the portrait. It told how the painter, driven mad with grief over his deceased daughter, had tried to capture her spirit in a painting, but had failed. Instead, he had trapped a living girl named Isabella inside the canvas, condemning her to an eternity of sorrow. The book also revealed a way to break the curse. It mentioned a hidden key, an object of true love, which could set Isabella free. However, the key was lost, or so everyone thought. But Ethan remembered a detail from his first visit to the museum. A kind old caretaker had shown him around. What if the old man knew more than he was saying? Ethan went back to the museum and confronted the caretaker. At first, the old man denied knowing anything, but then he broke down and confessed. He had indeed seen Isabella in the painting, and he had taken the hidden key when he retired from the museum years ago. He gave it to Ethan, explaining that the key represented the love between a father and a daughter. With the key in hand, Ethan raced back to the museum. As he neared the portrait, he felt a surge of hope, but then he hesitated. The painting was beautiful, and he didn't want to destroy it. But looking into Isabella's sad eyes, he knew he had to. With a deep breath, he took out the key and touched it to the painting. At first, nothing happened. Then the colors of the painting started to swirl. With a final burst of light, the painting was empty. Isabella stood there in her nightgown, more alive than ever. They embraced, overjoyed to be free of the curse. But suddenly, the room started to shake. The old museum was collapsing. They ran for the exit just as the building crumbled behind them. Outside, they watched as the moonlight revealed the true masterpiece, a new painting on the rubble, showing Ethan and Isabella embracing under the moonlight. And they lived happily ever after. Ethan's heart pounded. "So I can free you completely?" he whispered, his voice echoing in the cavernous hall. Isabella, the ghost who haunted the old Victorian mansion he now owned, shook her head, her ethereal form shimmering in the moonlight that streamed through the high windows. "If you free me, my existence will vanish. If I return to the painting," she trailed off, her voice catching in her throat, "I may never come back again." Ethan felt a surge of protectiveness for the ghost who had become his confidant, his only friend in the desolate mansion. But he had made a promise to her, a vow to uncover the truth behind her haunting and set her spirit free from the prison of her own making. He couldn't go back on his word. Not now, not when he had come so close. "Then what do I do?" he cried, his voice cracking with emotion. Isabella smiled sadly, her tears falling like broken stars onto the dusty floor. "Love often demands sacrifice. Choose. Keep my memory alive or destroy me forever." As if in answer to her words, the lights flickered ominously overhead, casting grotesque shadows that danced and twisted on the walls. A blood-curdling scream echoed through the silent halls, bouncing off the portraits whose eyes seemed to gleam with an eerie light. Ethan felt a chill crawl up his spine, but it wasn't the cold that sent shivers down his flesh. It was the raw, untamed fear that gnawed at his resolve. He turned to Isabella, his gaze pleading for guidance, but when he turned back, she was gone, vanished into thin air, leaving him alone in the suffocating darkness. The scream came again, closer this time, and Ethan found himself frozen in place, unable to move, unable to speak. Then, as abruptly as it began, it stopped. The silence was deafening, broken only by the frantic thumping of Ethan's heart. He fumbled for his phone, its tiny light a beacon in the overwhelming darkness. As he moved, something glinted on the floor, catching his eye. It was a ring, an ornate silver band with a large sapphire nestled in its center. He recognized it instantly. It was the very ring Isabella had described, the one she had lost all those years ago. He knew what he had to do. Clutching the ring, he raced through the labyrinthine halls, his breath catching in his throat, his heart threatening to burst out of his chest. He could feel Isabella's presence guiding him, urging him onward. And then he saw it. The portrait, ornately framed and hung as if in mockery, was the only source of light in the otherwise pitch-black room. Its surface, however, was blank, devoid of any image. With trembling hands, he stepped closer, the ring heavy in his pocket. He stared at the empty canvas, willing the paint to reappear, to reveal the face of the woman he had fallen in love with, the woman who had become his anchor in the storm of his grief. Suddenly, the paint began to stir. At first, it was just a subtle shift, a subtle change in texture. But then it grew, becoming more pronounced until finally the full image came into view. Standing before him was Isabella, her eyes shining with an otherworldly glow, her lips parted as if in surprise. She was beautiful, ethereal, otherworldly. But there was no joy in his discovery, no triumph in his victory. For as he gazed into her haunting eyes, he saw not only the love he had come to cherish, but also the pain, the sorrow, the longing. He saw her torment. He had freed her from the confines of the painting, but he had also trapped her forever in his own personal hell. He had kept his promise, yes, but in doing so, he had condemned them both to an eternity of suffering. The next morning, when visitors entered the silent hall, they gasped. The painting was no longer blank. It now showed Ethan's face. His eyes carried the same grief, the same despair, the same haunting emptiness that had mirrored Isabella's torment. He was trapped now too, his fate forever intertwined with the cursed canvas. And so the curse continued, not lifted, but merely transferred. Some secrets once uncovered do not free us. They trap us instead.